Perfect. All right, so Kelley, Plant-Based Kitchenista, if you haven't met me before, so probably most of you have probably seen me on different like YouTube channels and then also on Chef AJ's show that she does every month. Love Chef AJ, always great. So we're going to be making, so let's start out that way. We're plant-based and we're no oil. So vegetable broth, stock, water, or we always say white wine if I'm making like a tomato sauce. So we are going to be making some Thanksgiving recipes. Figured we might as well do them the first of Thanksgiving. That way that, you know, before the first of the month, so that it's not like 2 days before and you got to rush to the store and everybody's at the store and it's all crazy and stuff. So this gives you time to have some planning, which is really nice. So we're going to make a Thanksgiving loaf with a puff pastry, and we've got the puff pastry right here. So we'll do that really quick. And then we're going to make a fruit and nut stuffing, which is absolutely our favorite. It's very different than probably stuffings that your mom used to make, but it's really good. It's just got all kinds of like, you know, the fruits and vegetables and everything like that in it. And it's just one of our favorites. And then we're going to make melting sweet potatoes. So you'll notice kind of in the back and stuff, I also have another pot back there. Jerry loves mashed potatoes, especially when he does some kind of a Thanksgiving loaf. So because he's spoiled, as I say, he's getting mashed potatoes also. So I'll make those and stuff for us. And that's just, of course, whipping them up, putting a little bit of soy milk and a little bit of salt and pepper, and voila, it's done. All right, so I'll have Jerry introduce himself real quick, and then we're going to get started because there is a lot of recipes that, and they, you know, it looks like a lot, but there's a lot of prep that you can do a day ahead of time for the Thanksgiving loaf. And then you can also take the spices out of it that are more like the Thanksgiving. So like the sages and the poultry spices, and you could make it just a regular meatloaf during the rest of the year. So we do that both. So it's actually a really, really fun way to do it. And the puff pastry makes it just extra pretty. So but if you don't want to do puff pastry, don't do the puff pastry. You're okay with that. So let Jerry introduce himself, and then we're going to get cooking.
Okay, hello everybody. Glad you can join us today. For those first timers don't know who I am, I'm Jerry Casados, a plant-based nutritionist, and we've been plant-based now 16 years. Amazing. And I did it for health reasons of my own, of heart disease and high blood pressure. All those things happens when we get a little older. Yeah, but Kelley's very supportive and come along with me in my journey to health and wellness. With Dr. McDougall, I saw him for 10 days in his live-in program in 2007. Changed my life, saved my life and changed my whole life. But I went back to school, got certified in plant-based nutrition, and that's what I do now. I'm a certified instructor for Dr. McDougall's Start Solution program, which I do teach. And if you're interested, please come give me a holler. I'll put my contact information. If you're transitioning or need more information, not doing something correct, let me know. I'll be glad to answer any questions. So, but I'm here to enjoy this lovely dinner. My favorite turkey loaf. Is that what you call it?
Thanksgiving loaf.
Oh, not a vegan turkey. But anyway, I'm here to eat. So that's all.
How long have you been plant-based?
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh boy. And it's now recorded for everybody to hear. Jerry say turkey. All right. So Thanksgiving loaf with puff pastry. So we're going to get that started. So like I said, I did a little bit of par cooking. And great. I love to see that Brittany, you said you're excited because it's Thanksgiving recipes. It'll be your first fully plant-based Thanksgiving. So these, like I said, this is only part of the recipes that I usually do when I'm doing a Thanksgiving dinner. I do the mashed potatoes. I've got desserts. I've got all kinds of different things. So if you're looking to have other recipes, and I know Chef AJ just offered a show where she was doing her, I think it was pumpkin pie, and then she did her tart. We did a lot of those kind of things in Mexico when I did the trip with her with Mexico about a couple months ago. Fun things. The tart is absolutely delicious, but we have like pumpkin brulee, pumpkin cakes, you know, all kinds of different things. So if you're looking for recipes, I am all about sharing and all about community. So Jerry just put in my email, the Kelley at Plant-Based Kitchen. Just send me an email and say, hey, can you send me some different plant-based Thanksgiving recipes? Done. I'll send them over to you. So okay, so a couple things that we're going to do. So if you're reading the recipes, if you have them in front of you. So one of the things that we already did is I already did the vegetables because I figured you didn't probably want to sit there and watch me saute vegetables, even though we will do it for the fruit and nut stuffing, because I'm going to show you a tip and trick to make really good stuffing. So this is here, if we're looking at it, you've got a medium onion diced. You've got, instead of 2 portobello, I just used the little baby bellas and I just chopped those up. So it was an 8-ounce box. And then I had 2 stalks of celery and 2 carrots. And so that's all in there, plus the garlic. So I just sauteed them, of course, with a little vegetable broth or water. And then just, where they're really soft, because you're going to put them in a food processor to blend them up. Because when you look at a meatloaf, just like a regular meatloaf that maybe your mom made, and I think most of our moms probably made them, they, everything's very smooth. You could leave it a little chunky if you want, but I usually tend to kind of blend everything up so it looks just like a meatloaf. So this is going to go in the food processor first. If there's a little moisture left over, it's okay. And then if you don't want to use, baby bellas, like let's just say you go to the store and that happens all the time that you can't because they're out of baby bellas, you can use the button mushrooms. You can use whatever your favorite mushrooms are. And if you don't like mushrooms, I don't. I do not like every time I get mushrooms in salads or anything like that or on pizza, I give it all to Jerry. So I don't mind it like this because when it's all blended up, you don't taste the mushrooms. So just got everything in there. Give it a little whirl. And it smells really good. It's just like, it's like all of your, it's all your vegetables, kind of like a roux. You've got the onions, you've got the celery, you got the carrots. Go till it kind of just stops on you. Another tip, put your finger in the hole down here for the blade, like that. So when you're showing it to somebody or you're tipping it, the blade doesn't fall out and it doesn't go splash all over you. So there it is. That's all just ground up. You can see that there's still some little chunks of carrots and stuff, but once it all cooks up, it actually looks really good. So then just put that into a bowl. If you do a regular, just a regular plant-based meatloaf and stuff, you'll use like Worcestershire and Dijon mustard and all that. When you're doing a Thanksgiving, doesn't have all those different flavors, but it's got sage and poultry spice and all those good things. And the nice thing about this recipe, put it right back on. Don't have to rinse it out because everything's going in one big bowl and going together. Put your blade down. Then your binder. We've got 1 cup of cooked lentils, and then we've got a half a cup of the brown rice. So it's a little bit more than that, just because it's like, well, it cooked up a little bit more. So I'm actually just going to add it in. This was done last night. So it's cold, but that is okay. And if you think about this, when this goes in the oven, because there was kind of a timing question a little bit earlier, that when you're putting this in, pretty much everything that's going in here is already cooked. So it's a matter of just making sure when you're doing things, it's heating it up and, just getting it kind of a little bit more browned type of thing. So hit the food processor again. Thanks, Mona, Zoom user. Okay, so same thing. It actually turns kind of a gray because of your green lentils and a little bit of the brown rice. And I cooked them together. Don't do 2 separate pots. Make this easy for yourself. Put it in one pot and cook it all together. Flat brown lentils or red ones. So these were just regular. These were actually just the regular brown lentils. And that's what I had, but you could use red. You could use whatever color you want. So let me just grab a spatula. So it almost looks like kind of a gray baby food a little bit, but it's a great binder. And it's easy to make. Just get that rest of it out. Kind of looks like oatmeal, actually. Cooked oatmeal. All right, set that off to the side. Just give it a quick little stir. Smells really good because you've got the onions and the carrots and the celery and everything else in there other than the mushrooms. But you don't see the mushrooms anymore. All right. So we got that mixed together. So now you're going to use 1 cup of a stuffing mix. So, find just your regular stuffing mix. If you can't find one that doesn't have oil in it and doesn't have all the bad ingredients, and there's quite a few of them out there if you go to organic stores, or Sprouts and those and Whole Foods and stuff. But if you can't find it, then just go ahead and toast up some breadcrumbs and then just put like a little bit of poultry seasoning. And I know poultry seasoning sounds weird because it's poultry, but it all has all the good things. It has like the sage and everything else that you need in there. Just add that in there. That. If you can't find the breadcrumbs, you can also do some cornbread. So you could make up some cornbread and then put cornbread in here because you need that binder, and it takes the place of like panko breadcrumbs, but it gives you that really good flavor of Thanksgiving. So just a little mix of that, because especially if you find something like if you don't want big chunks of breadcrumbs or cornbread, you want the really small like this. That way that when the moisture's in here, it's going to soak up. And so you're not going to bite into the Thanksgiving loaf and just have these big old chunks of breadcrumbs, which that's not fun. If you don't have breadcrumbs, like this type of a thing, or the stuffing mix, the other thing you could use is just panko. So you could do that, but just what you're going to want to do is probably going to be add some more spices. So maybe, if you put in the teaspoons or the tablespoons that I've actually suggested, then just go back and taste it because everything's cooked so that you don't have eggs or anything like that you have to worry about. And so everything's in there, and then just taste it and go like, oh, I need a little bit more poultry seasoning or a little more sage or something like that, or whatever flavors that you're looking to do. All right. So we've got that in there. We've got 2 tablespoons parsley. You can also use fresh parsley. You've got 1 tablespoon of arrowroot, and then you've got 1.5 tablespoons of poultry seasoning. So there is the parsley and the poultry seasoning. Here is the arrowroot. So the arrowroot's just another ingredient. This could be arrowroot. It could be cornstarch that's non-GMO. It's just or tapioca starch. It's just another ingredient to hold everything together. Especially when you're adding a little bit of those breadcrumbs, you want to make sure that it has the moisture, but it also has the binder, even though that your brown rice and your lentils are going to hold up everything really well. Just mix it up. See how it looks? Got all the colors and stuff where it actually looks like a regular type of a loaf. Okay, we got everything in there. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, we do. All right, so then a couple things. So I'm going to set that to the side for a minute. We need to be able to let me get the food processor out of here. We need to be able to get the sauce that's going to go on top going. All right. Grab my little pan. So you don't have to do the sauce. You could just do a regular tomato sauce if you wanted to. So like tomato sauce, a little bit of tamari, and a little bit of smoked, like the regular liquid smoke. And that makes a really good sauce if you want something smoky. But this one's actually kind of got a little bit of a bite to it, but a little bit sweet, which is really nice. But it also is very much holiday. So we've got 1.5 cups. So 1.5 cups of the ketchup. You could also substitute, not do ketchup and do tomato sauce if you wanted to. But this gives it a little bit of sweetness. Then you've got 1/2 of a jalapeno. If you don't like hot, leave the jalapeno out. Put that in. Put the rest off to the side. All right. And then we have, cups. So I didn't find any. So first things, couldn't find any fresh cranberries. So these are actually ones that I freeze. And that's one thing that you can always freeze. It is hard to find cranberries anymore, especially when they're fresh. So I actually, a lot of times and stuff, I'll buy like 2 bags and put them in the freezer. And then when I'm looking to make something, like if I decide to make like the Thanksgiving burgers during the middle of July or something, because Jerry loves burgers, then I always have cranberries on hand. You can also use, if you want to, just the canned cranberries, do that. But this is what we found. Couldn't find any cranberries in the stores for some reason. So I'm using fresh. What you do when you're using the fresh, of course, if you've actually made cranberry sauce, you're going to want to put a lid on it because cranberries tend to explode and you'll end up having cranberry sauce all over the place. So that's pretty much it. If it gets a little bit dry, if it starts getting a little bit dry, just add a little bit of vegetable broth or water. But let me get this started. Put that on there. Easy peasy. Just wash my hands. All right, puff pastry. You do not have to do puff pastry because it's beautiful. Once you put the meatloaf together and then you put this really bright red sauce that's on top, it's just beautiful like that. So then you could just slice it up and have it on everybody's plate. But if you want to add that extra kind of puff pastry is the way to do it. So regular Pepperidge Farms I can't talk today. Puff pastry that's out there. Parchment paper. Sometimes puff pastry is hard to find also, so this was in my freezer. So since it's going to be about this size of a meatloaf, you can either do one puff pastry, but I figure since I've already pulled it out, I'm just going to do both really quick and just use them. Just peel it down. This, I'll overlap them just a little bit on the edge. If I'd start at the end, that would be easier. So I just do that like in the middle. They're already starting to pop. You can hear them. It's like boom, boom, boom. So then I just grab, if you don't have a rolling pin, feel free to use just like if you have a flat cup or something like that, you can do that. Or you can just do it with your hands and just kind of push it out a little bit because you want the puff pastry a little bit thinner than what it comes because it's probably about 1/4 inch thick. And a little bit of puff pastry can go a long way. So it's kind of nice to spread it out just a little bit. If it sticks for some reason on your rolling pin, like it's doing a little bit on mine, then feel free to add just a little bit of flour, but don't add a lot of flour because you will get that into the puff pastry and actually it's not very good. What I'm trying to do is spread it out just enough where once I put the meatloaf in here, that I can actually pull the puff pastry around the sides. All right. Spoon. Already starting to look like. Got a little bit of kick with the jalapeno. All right, so then I'm going to grab Yes, you can. So you could use rolled oats as a binder if you'd like to. So versus using the I was going to say the stuffing mix, you could do that. So I would say start out with about a 1/2 cup of the rolled oats, mix it in really well, and then you're probably total about 3/4 of a cup. But check it because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make it where it's like kind of like a burger ball. Because you've got, so it sticks together like that. That's when you know you have enough of the rolled oats or whatever binder that you've got in there. This makes really good burgers too. So we just start kind of rolling it out. Putting it in the middle of the puff pastry. It smells just like Thanksgiving. All right. So then you want to form it. And if you don't want to, like I said, if you don't want to do all this, you could actually get some of the baking tins, the ones that like for bread and things. And then you could actually put your meatloaf in there, put the sauce on it, and then pull it out of there. It makes it just as pretty. Okay. Then the sauce. Just get all the cranberries. Got a little bit of that jalapeno up the nose. Let's give it a couple little minutes. But look how pretty that is. Almost looks like a red hot. Yeah, so great question, Daisy. So as far as arrowroot, you can do a cornstarch non-GMO. That's a substitution, or like tapioca starch. Those are the other ones. If overall, truthfully, this is just a hint and tip. If you don't want to do any of those type of things for that kind of a binder, leave it out. You're okay, because it's still because you still have the, like the panko, or you've got the what am I trying? Stuffing mix, that type of thing in there. It's going to hold together well without even the arrowroot or the tapioca, that type of thing. So feel free to leave it out. And then you asked for the poultry seasoning with veggie seasoning. So I guess the question would be, so poultry seasoning it doesn't have anything that is non-plant based. It's just all spices. It may be, so tell me why that you would want to substitute that. You could do a veggie seasoning, but it doesn't give you as much of the flavor as like the Thanksgiving flavors and stuff that you're looking for. So tell me why you were kind of looking at that. And then I can answer that question for you. All right. All right, I'm gonna take the jalapeno out. Yeah, because your poultry seasoning is pretty much like sage and thyme and all those type of things like that. So all good for you. All right. Just squishing down the cranberries. And just kind of smush them around. So like I said, with this type of a sauce on it anyway, you just bake this. It's just as beautiful. But it's kind of fun to use puff pastry, especially when it's like around the holidays. No. Let me get this done first real quick. Poultry seasonings I get don't have chicken in them. So, but I'll look here just a second. I just want to get this going, and then watch it too, because your cranberries and stuff, of course, will stain everything. All right. So to do this, you can pull up the ends, you can pull up the sides, whatever you want to do. It's going to stick a little bit. When your puff pastry sets out just a little bit, it will start sticking, but just kind of play with your hands a little bit. They're all good. And just kind of pull everything together. Make it pretty. If you have some extra puff, I'll take these off because they're sticking. If you have extra puff pastry, you could actually do like a braid on it, like bread braids. You could do that. Okay. Then you can also do a little bit of slices in it. And actually, you know what? Instead of dirtying another piece of parchment paper, voila. You could also add a little bit of thyme on it if you want. So you can put some greenery, like some of your Some of I'll put some and stuff when it comes out, but you've got fresh thyme, anything like that. So this is going to go in the oven. All right. I got puff pastry stuck to everything. Parchment paper. The other thing I've been experimenting with, I'll show you here in just a minute, but let me get the dressing going because that's your next biggest one. So dressing, you could do all these different steps. You could put everything together, but the dressing is actually really easy to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything into a pan here, and I'm also going to put the vegetable broth and everything and let it all simmer up together. And then I'll pour it over the breadcrumbs so that you get all those good flavors, and your cranberries or your cherries and stuff actually plump up and everything, which is really good. So let's get started. This is the dressing. So we've got, if you're following along, so we've got the breadcrumbs, those are ready to go. We've got the almonds that are ready to go. So it's got almonds in it. What we're going to do first is we're going to heat some vegetable broth. If you don't have vegetable broth, water works. You'll end up using a lot of vegetable broth on dressing. That's the one thing that you'll do. We're going to add the onions. So we got red onions because you look at the colors. You've got, you got cherries, you've got the apples that are going to go in there. You've got celery and everything. So you're wanting to add color. It's all about eye candy. It's what I call it. Let's get that in there. And I'm going to add the celery, and it's chopped, small diced. Just going to add that in there too while we're doing that. Let me grab a spoon. And then while we're letting that go, sweet potatoes. So I par steamed the sweet potatoes just because I knew time wise, and you guys were asking about, having the class ready and things ready. So I actually par steamed and stuffed the sweet potatoes. So they're actually ready to go in the oven. And this is something, when you're getting ready, and we all have one oven. Sometimes we're lucky to have double ovens, or sometimes even more than that. Once you get things going in the oven, there's always the time and stuff where you have to plan everything and be like, okay, I can't do the sweet potatoes until the stuffing comes out, or this type of thing. This is a quick, easy way to get your sweet potatoes going and then be able to cook them right at the very end. Yep, you sure could. So the sweet potatoes that we got, so you can do sweet potatoes, yams, you could do the purple ones, whatever you're looking for. The peeling on them didn't look that good. So sometimes like when you get potatoes and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to remove it. So just separate them out. And it's not going to take very long because they're already soft. It's not going to take long for them to heat up and to start caramelizing. So if you want, you can add a little bit of moisture to them, which is just, if you have a little bit of vegetable broth, a little bit of water, it just helps to kind of that steaming caramelizing. So get that going. All right. Yeah, I don't know if it's just, that's a great question, Brittany, that you asked, but I don't know if it's just Colorado or if you guys are seeing it in the stores. I'm seeing a lot of things like potatoes, and some of the actual skins on them or the peeling is not that good. It's like either tough or it has a lot of imperfections on it, so sometimes I just peel them off and sometimes I don't. But lately, not the best. That could be Colorado. Okay, so we've got the celery and the onions going, but we're going to start adding everything else that's going to add in there. So if you're looking at that, we've got sage, parsley, and then the other thing that this adds in here, which is very different, is ground nutmeg. So you're getting a little bit of that kind of almost the holiday thing with that, but you're also getting a lot of the Thanksgiving. So I'm going to add that in. And the actual measurements, so it was 2 teaspoons of poultry seasoning, and then a quarter teaspoon, or actually half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And then we had 3 teaspoons of the sage, and then a little bit, and then basically 3 tablespoons of fresh parsley. One of the things that you're going to want to do when you're making this recipe is if you're, you're not too sure about the different spices I'm putting in here, go low. So if you say, yeah, I don't know if I want that much sage, go with like a teaspoon of sage and go with maybe a teaspoon of the poultry seasoning, and then you can always add in. But know that when you put in the breadcrumbs and you're doing that and stuff, you're going to need a lot more seasonings, but always start low and then add in, because it's easier to add than it is to take away. Nothing worse than grabbing the wrong spice and something else, and then it just everything goes bad. All right, so we're going to add in, since that's cooking, I've got dried cranberries. You could substitute those out with cherries. You could do, any of your fruits that you're looking for. Fresh apples. Any apple, doesn't matter, whatever's your favorite. What I like about this stuffing recipe, and I've done it many, many times, I can actually do it with my eyes closed anymore, is that you can put everything into one pot and make it. Versus, I remember my mom when she was making stuffing, and of course, she used all the turkey necks and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of steps, a lot of different steps, which don't need to do. All right, so got the other, that was actually the sage. So that goes in. The other thing that this does, this recipe, and this is why I like it. So fruit and balsamic, or fruit and some type of a sweetener, good. And actually, both are going into this recipe. So you get a little bit of that kind of the tartness and stuff, but it brings out the flavor, and it brings out like the apples and the celery and everything else. But then you also get a little bit of the sweetness that's in there too. So you get the apples that are sweetness, but then a little bit of maple syrup. If you don't want them to use maple syrup, date paste is another way to do it. And I know that like Chef AJ does, she loves the date lady. So she has all kinds of date paste and date syrups and everything that's out there. So you could use that too. Okay, so really pretty before I do anything else with it. So maple syrup. Balsamic vinegar, doesn't matter, any balsamic that you want to use. If you wanted to like spice it up a little bit more, you could use like an apple balsamic. This is just a regular balsamic. Almonds. If you don't like almonds and want to change it out to walnuts or something else, feel free. Pine nuts, any of those. Jerry always laughs when I do suggest the different nuts, because it goes back to best in show: pine nuts, peanuts, walnuts. Oh my God, that smells so good. And all the beautiful colors, the purples and the reds and everything. And the nice thing about it is that it's like when salads and stuff, sometimes when you get too many dried cranberries in a salad, they're like really chewy and they're hard on the teeth. This will actually explode back up your cranberries and rehydrate them, which is really nice. So then overall, we're going to add 3 cups of vegetable broth. So I'm going to add it. I'm the only one who eats nuts. Any other texture ideas, non-nut suggestions? So if your family doesn't like nuts for texture, what else could you do? I mean, you could add some more dried fruit if they're okay with dried fruit, would be something that you could do. I'm thinking. All right, suggestions. Anybody else for suggestions? Because I'm thinking, right? No, I don't want non-nuts. Let me think here for a second. What other can you do for non-nuts? I mean, you really don't need it because you've got all the fruit and things in there. So if you did this recipe, nobody would notice that there wasn't nuts in it. But I'm just trying to think if there's any other like a texture. Yeah, I could do mushrooms, but it doesn't give you that crunchy. I'm thinking, don't give up on me yet. It'll come. It'll just pop in my head and be like, oh yeah. Any of you guys have suggestions? Mona, Brittany? I'm thinking, what I'm doing is thinking through my pantry, and I'm thinking through what I have in the refrigerator. Celery. Yeah, it's got celery in it. Very, very good suggestion. Not necessary. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, definitely not, you don't have to do the nuts. It's just more of a crunch that just adds a little bit of flavor. But with the apples and the cranberries, you could always add like pears in it, all those kind of things. Easy to do. So I'm just going to let this cook for just a few minutes. So everything you'll see, I put in the 3 cups of the vegetable broth because I'm just letting it all kind of simmer together. Pumpkin seeds or nuts. Yeah. It's hard with nuts because nuts give you that crunch. I was trying to think of anything else I've seen. But yeah, I'll think of, like I said, you're going to wake me up at midnight tonight. Something's going to come up and I'll be like, oh, yeah. Air fry some chickpeas. Yeah, that's actually a really good suggestion. I would put some, if you're going to do the chickpeas, I would almost do like a little bit of like a sweet flavoring on them or something to add in there. So maybe it's, that you add like maybe some date paste or date syrup or something like that too. Because otherwise your chickpeas might be a little savory. Okay. All right, so we've got that. So I'm just gonna let this bubble up until this is ready to go. Let me grab my baking dish. So the sweet potatoes, the sauce that's gonna go over that is a maple syrup. If you don't want maple syrup, then you can feel free to use like a date syrup, which is really good. So it's just as sweet, but it's not going to be, it won't be the maple syrup, but this is just a pure maple syrup. And then it's pecans. And that's what gives it that melting sweet potatoes. When a lot of people, even Jerry was like, the sweet potatoes are sweet already as they are. I don't need that. But when I put this sauce on it and it's just like more of a drizzle, he eats it. And he's already been trying to steal most of my pecans anyway. So one question, another question. You don't use salt, but would you say it could be added pepper or bad for flavor? No, you could have, definitely good question. I definitely don't use salt. I don't cook with salt, but I do put it on the table. So if I want salt and a little bit of salt on things, then I can do that. So I'll put it like in the mashed potatoes today and that. But anytime where I have it on there, I just said it's optional because I know some people are looking, for health reasons and stuff or staying away from salt. Black pepper, you can put it in anything. It does. I use lots of black pepper, but it's just more of one of those things that I just don't do the salt and pepper first and then I just do it on the table. But yes, put it in and it won't harm the flavors or anything like that. The only place I've ever seen that salt overpowers flavors that you're doing is like in an Instant Pot because you've got all that pressurized things that are going on. So if you put a soup and you put in like a teaspoon of, you taste it and you're like, I put a teaspoon of the salt in and then you're actually doing all the pressure, it makes it too salty. So that's the only thing I'd watch with. But otherwise, all the salt and the kind of the ingredients I have here, feel free to add it in, taste it, whatever you need to do. Okay, let's get this boiling. I'm gonna put it on max sear. I'll show you what the Thanksgiving loaf is starting to look like. You can tell it's kind of, we've got a gas oven, so it tends to sear my parchment paper, but it's starting to nicely cook up. And pretty much since everything is cooked on the inside, let me do this real quick. Since everything's cooked on the inside, you're more about making sure your puff pastry's done and browned, and then everything pretty much is ready. Right. I'll show you what I'm doing. So I'm just letting this boil here let's get it boiling. So in my dehydrator, I've been actually making, so Lissa, who is Raw Food Romance, she's on Chef AJ's shows and stuff a lot, talked about making vegetable wraps. So this one, let me show you one that's even has a little bit prettier. She makes the big 14 by 14 because she has one of the really big dehydrators. This one I have was like a 12 by 12. And I was like, I'm not going to buy a new dehydrator because they're not very expensive anymore. But I was like, I'm not going to buy a new dehydrator until I know I can do this. And they actually work because there is, different ways and stuff you can do them. And sometimes like the first time I made them, they were too thin and they kind of fell apart, but they tasted great. This is the purple yam. that's out there, and it was mixed in with the orange because I had both left over. And then, so it's all vegetables. It's dehydrated for about 12 hours. So these were actually, because I had 3, were about 13 hours. There's the back side of them. So they're a little sticky, but nice and dehydrated to the touch. These are going to be for wraps. So I've made these 3, and you can store them for like 2 or 3 weeks, but I've been making these, and the last one we tried and stuff, Jerry's like, well, why don't you just buy, a wrap or something? And I'm like, yeah, but they usually have flour and all kinds of other things in it. These don't have flour. It's like onions, yams, or sweet potatoes. There's so many different ones that she had. I was trying to think what else. Water, chia seeds, psyllium husk, and a little bit of other things and stuff. But this is what these turned out. This is my second try. And so these are going to be wraps and stuff that I'll make up. And then I'll wrap them up in like a wax paper and have them in the refrigerator for the entire week. But I was wanted to share those with you because I was proud that they came out. The second time I'm like, woohoo. All right. There we go. You're not bugging me. Yes, you could. So yes, so curious if you could cover the puff pastry for some of the time and cook longer if you pre-made the mushroom mix and it was cold to start. Yes, you sure could. So you could put like parchment paper and then like aluminum foil or something over it and cover it a little bit. And then that way, because if it's like, like just say you do all your vegetables and your cooked brown rice and everything, and it was cold and it was coming right out of the refrigerator. Yes, you could do that. And then just have your puff pastry so it doesn't brown so much or burn, and then just let it cook a little bit longer and then ready to go. So yes. And you're not bugging me. These, I love the questions when you do that. Okay. Yeah, you saw it. So we did that. All right. So in goes breadcrumbs. And if you don't want this, I mean, it makes a lot of stuffing. If you don't want this amount of stuffing, cut everything in half, or cut your breadcrumbs in half, still make this, because this is the best part, is all the moisture. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in there with my hands, because the more that you break up the breadcrumbs, the better mixture that you have of your stuffing versus just sinking your teeth into big breadcrumbs, unless that's what you want. You could also change this out and do a cornbread, which is really good. All right, let's just get. You'll notice like the cherries. Let's find one. Look how big the cherries and these are the cranberries. The cherries are cranberries. Look how big they got. Huge. They soaked up all the moisture. And forget the spatula. Maybe use the spoon first since it's very hot. Oops. Need our other dog kid here who would have been crunching on the little breadcrumbs that I just put on the floor. He used to love to be under my feet when I was cooking because anything that dropped was hers. So it looked like a lot of moisture, but you can tell it's soaked it all up. There's all my cranberries. May not need to be able to get in there with my hands. Soaking up pretty well, which is really nice. Sometimes when you make your homemade breadcrumbs, sometimes and stuff, you need to get in there with your hands and break them up a little bit more. But these are coming together very nicely. Now the moisture out of one corner into another. Taste. This would be where you would add your salt. Yep. All right, just get that mixed in a little bit more. And I just stepped on like 4 of the breadcrumbs. You could hear them like. All right. So to go in the oven to go through the whole entire process, you're going to put, but since we're going to be showing it and stuff, you would put parchment paper and then aluminum foil. And if anybody, we always try to keep the aluminum foil from being right on our food. So that's how we usually end up getting that. So it doesn't brown so much on the top until the very end. But I'm going to go ahead and just get this in the oven. Just making sure we got all the breadcrumbs. Couple breadcrumbs still. All right. Good. So there, say put messy. That's all ready to go. And you could actually keep stirring and kind of bring your cranberries to the top, but that is ready to go with all the apples and all the yummy ingredients in there. So I'm gonna bring my sweet potatoes out. This is what I was talking about. This is when you need a double oven. There. All right, so sweet potatoes. Cover them for just a few minutes because we're going to get those going. I think there's like 15 little breadcrumbs on the floor here. That's what vacuum cleaners are for. All right, so the sauce for that. All right, we got the pan, small little saucepan. Just found another breadcrumb. I think I'll grab a whisk. This is the maple syrup. So you've got a half a cup of maple syrup. You don't need a lot just because it's just a nice drizzle that's over it, especially when you have the pecans. If you're not a pecan fan or not nut fan, you could just actually use a little bit of drizzle with this, just with the maple syrup or a date. I was gonna say dirt syrup, date syrup. You could do that too, but it's really good to add the nuts. But if your family doesn't like nuts, leave it out and then just do a slight little drizzle on it. Guarantee you they'll be a fan. So it's almost like you're making I would say like a pecan pie back in the days. Yum. Truthfully, on a pecan pie, my favorite is always the pecans on the top. Haven't done it for quite a while. I still bake it for people, but don't eat it. But I know there's all kinds of like pecan, bars that you can make and all kinds of things like that. So just going to let that sit for just a couple minutes. It'll start kind of boiling. If you end up wanting a little bit more drizzle, just add a little bit more of the maple syrup, or if it seems to be a little bit too thick, then you can always add just a little bit of water too. It's sticky. I have sticky everywhere. All right, so let me grab our sweet potatoes. Like reveal. Woohoo. You can caramelize them as much as you want or as less as you want. It's up to you. Those are about probably medium in the right now, but they are soft. I'm gonna grab parchment paper. Another tip and trick, the way you can do, if you don't want to have to do all the the caramelization and grab, if you don't have enough oven, I can't talk today, oven space. The other way to do sweet potatoes that turns out really, really well, and I'd say 9 times out of 10, that's how I usually do sweet potatoes, is put them into a large skillet. So same thing, slice them down, put them, you can leave the skins on, whatever the peeling, whatever you want to do, slice them down and then put them in a big frying pan, put a little bit of vegetable broth if you want, or just plain water, just add water in the bottom and then just put it more on kind of low, probably low to low medium, and then just let them simmer. And they will come out like this, and they'll come out like really soft. And then you could have the sauce ready here and then just drizzle them on that way. So in that way, you're using your top stoves, your stove space versus the oven. So it's another way to get your sweet potatoes done without taking up all your oven space. So my dressing may not be all caramelized, but it will be. Looks really good for the meat, for the Thanksgiving loaf. Or Jerry would say turkey loaf, but we didn't hear that. What I like about it, I mean, there's a lot of recipes out there for different types of loaves that you can make, but a lot of them have tofu in them. So that's why I like this one, because it has like all of your, your grains and your starches and your vegetables and things, and it doesn't have the extra tofu on it, but you don't need it. Makes really good sandwiches. So next day, get some, one of your favorite breads, or, maybe you got some of these fun wraps and you put more of a savory type of a flavoring in them, and then put them in with a wrap, and you could put like the, like lettuce and, different sauces and all that kind of stuff. And it's like Thanksgiving for a week, which is really nice. Jerry will we'll probably eat this like with the sweet potatoes and the mashed potatoes for a couple, 2 or 3 days. And then he'll start on the sandwiches for lunch. And then of course, like, big slice of red onion and all those wonderful things. More cranberry sauce. Okay, so nice, just heated, just maple syrup and pecans. When I did this when I used to do the live cooking classes and we'd, bring everybody together, this was probably the one thing everybody wanted to make. But a lot of the pecans were missing by the time we were done. Because everybody's like, oh, it reminds me of pecan pie. So they were eating all the pecans and stuff before they actually were done. Start grabbing everything else out. So those are the melting sweet potatoes. They are delicious. And the first time I made these, because Jerry's like he sometimes is like, I just like things just normal, plain type of thing. But he tried these and he's like, oh my goodness, these are so good. So fun thing to have during Thanksgiving. Probably a little more, a few more calories and stuff, but still a good thing to have. But healthy, exactly. All right, so I got a couple more minutes as I crunched on another breadcrumb. I've got them all over the place. Sweet potato Q. I chop and fry red potatoes over a skillet regularly with olive oil for a few minutes, then pop them in the oven and roast them with only some salt and pepper for 10 to 15 minutes, and then turn off okay, Fab. Can I do the same to the sweet potatoes also? Will they turn out without steaming them first? Yes, you can actually. So we don't use so let me turn this off here real quick so you don't have to listen to that. We don't use any olive oil or anything, but as far as, you could slice up the potatoes just like this. So your sweet potatoes, probably do them about a half, maybe not more than a ½ inch thick. And then you can put them on parchment paper. You could put, like water, a little bit of vegetable broth. Vegetable broth burns off really quick. And then just roast them, and then just keep roasting them, and then just keep watching them, flip them in between. So when you're roasting them from raw, you're going to want to flip them in between and make sure that, both sides get nice and roasted and soft. And then you could add to make your sauce and put it on there. So same thing. Or like I said, you could just do it in a skillet with some water on the stove, and they turn out wonderful that way too. It's only one day. Yeah. This looks wonderful. Thank you for the great recipes. Excited to try. Yes, I want to hear, when you guys are doing things. So let me grab, like I said, my stuffing's not going to be all the way done. It's going to take a little bit longer to get that done. I'm probably going to need to do a little bit longer. Definitely on that. So there is the meatloaf. So I'm just gonna let it go a little bit longer because I wanted a little bit more brown on the puff pastry. But you can see that it's split here, and I didn't cut all the way through, so it could have split here, which would have been really pretty. But it's, but you still could do it just a little bit more. So I needed, it looks like, so going back to the first question, looks like I needed about an hour and a half, but it just depends on your oven and what's going on. But I'm going to put this back into the oven so it's ready to go. Yep, we're just making sure it's all nice and brown and ready to go. So let me put that down so I can open the door. And I'm going to switch out my stuffing, and I'm going to put this on the top. So my stuffing will start picking up. It's got a little bit of liquid still because it needs to cook some more, but it'll start browning up on the top as we get going. So I'm going to probably take about another 15-20 minutes, just because it took a little bit longer to get going. But overall, all three of these recipes actually depends if you've got everything like your mise en place, put that back in there, mise en place all ready to go up and you've got everything ready. You could get this done in probably about an hour and a half. And then Thanksgiving's ready to go. Because a lot of the stuff that we were just showing today could actually be done way ahead of time, which is really nice. So, all right, so I'm going to let Jerry's like, oh crap, now I got to wait like another 15 minutes for dinner, but it's only 6:30 here. I think he'll be okay. But this, just eat one of the, it tastes like sweet potato pumpkin pie, not pumpkin pie, pecan pie. Wonderful. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed. We're gonna, like I said, I'm gonna let it cook for just a little bit longer to make sure everything's really good and done. And then I have a pecan stuck to my tooth now. But if you want any other recipes, like I said, this is all about community. I have all kinds of dessert recipes, a pumpkin brulee, which is in the little dishes, which is really fun. I've got a pumpkin cake that has like a pumpkin caramelized type of topping on the bottom, which is really nice. So it tastes like a pumpkin caramel pot or a cake. I've got a pumpkin cake. I've got all kinds of different things, and then tons of side dishes. We'll do Brussels sprouts with butternut squash and kinds of different sauces. So I've been collecting and doing pretty much every Thanksgiving, and then it comes around to the other holiday for the Christmas holidays and stuff. I'm always doing lots of recipes. So feel free, reach out to me, Kelley, Kelley at plantbasedkitchen.com. And I'll send you whatever you're looking for. So if you just say, send me some recipes, I can send you some ones we've done. Yeah, Brittany, reach out. It's always fun because you know what? If you don't make it this year, there's always next year. So, or the Christmas holidays. So we've got another class that's coming up here it's probably right after Thanksgiving. And then I'll be doing the Thanksgiving burgers with Chef AJ on her show. So that's using all your leftovers, which is really nice. So, you can do green beans and mashed potatoes and all that kind of stuff in your burgers. And they're really, really good. And they have like a cranberry sauce on the top, but you don't have to do the cranberry sauce if you don't want. And then we're going to do more like appetizers type of thing, especially with, if you're going to parties and, things have kind of opened up since COVID, that all type thing. Then I'll have that in December timeframe. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, reach out to me. I'm happy to share any of the recipes because they're good and they're tried true on family members and Jerry's daughter and things like that. Now has me bring in all the side dishes. She'll do the turkey for her and her family, but all the side dishes and the desserts and stuff all come from me. So happy to share. All right, I will post pictures. So please post pictures if you guys are making things, and I'd love to see, like any photos you have for your Thanksgiving holiday, if you make the Thanksgiving loaf, all those kind of things, but I guarantee your family will love it. So have fun. And Jerry's drooling because he can smell it now, but otherwise, love you guys. See you here in about 2 weeks. Bye. 3 weeks.